Good day to you all. We are going to look at the basic troubleshooting approach in the computing. Please, if you so as to give a heads up that I'm not audible. So, in a previous class, we tried to look at the computer system, that is considering the hardware, the software, as well as the main component of the computer. Look at the operating the command line, all the types of a computer system. And remember, this course is a hardware troubleshooting and maintenance. So we are going to look at basic troubleshooting steps, that is the approach now, as well as the common hardware problems that we usually face in our day-to-day dealing with those systems. So we are also going to look at some of these tools that we are going to be using in diagnosing those systems whenever they get faults, and the techniques we'll be using in identifying those faults. Also, we are going to be able to look at the preventive maintenance approach. How far are you going to be able to protect or to prevent your system from getting fault? We are also going to look at what are those procedures and the best practice in hardware maintenance. So we have been hearing this troubleshooting and maintenance of a computer system. What is this troubleshooting? First of all, before we dive into troubleshooting, we need to understand maintenance first. If we talked about maintenance, this is a process whereby you can be able to at least protect or prevent your system from getting fault. And in troubleshooting, we are talking about the process you can follow in order to identify and fix that very particular system of yours. So we have in computer maintenance, we have two different categories of a computer maintenance. One, we have preventive maintenance, and then we have corrective maintenance. And our troubleshooting come in. So if we talked about the preventive maintenance now, we are talking about the measures you can be able to take in order to protect your system from getting fault. And those things include proper shutdown of your system, proper cleanup of the system, proper upgrade and update. That is for both hardware and software system. So these are what it entails if we are talking about the preventive maintenance. That is a process in which you follow to prevent your system from getting into faulty. So if we talked about the corrective maintenance, we said that is where we are having the troubleshooting. And this is the process, that is the corrective now, is a process of identifying fault on your computer system. And we have, in doing this, many steps in which you can be able to follow. We have many steps in which you can be able to follow so that you can be able to identify and then fix these computer issues or computer problems. With any computer issues, that is we need to have what we call a semantic approach, which is very crucial step for us to follow. And what are those steps that you need to follow so that you can be able to fix those issues? Number one, you have to identify the problem. What is the problem of your system? That is the number one solution. And in doing that, you need to gather specific details about that very particular issue you're about what detecting or you're about finding the issue on. So what error message particular system try to, because we know most of these systems, sometimes if we are working with them, they do develop issues in the sense that like popping up some messages, like you can see we have a common message like 0 0 0 0 0 0 16 0 0 6 and whatsoever. So all these things, they are what, they are the kind of errors mostly associated with either your screen memory or whatsoever. It depends on the code, so you can get to know these codes. So in doing this, you are also going to try different applications, or we call them boots. So once you identify this problem, you identify the error message, and at what point did it be able to give you that very error message? Is it during booting? Is it during shutting down of the system, or during what, your activities? And if it is on activities, on what application are you working with when it start developing this problem? So these are the things you need to consider at identifying the problem. After you have identified the problem, now you are going to isolate the issue. One will say that this isolating issue with identifying problem is the same thing. No, it is not the same thing. Because here at this phase, you are going to determine if the problem is from the what? Is from the hardware or software. Because assuming in the first instance, you've only been able to achieve to know the cause, that is the error message, the system is booting or is not booting. So now in isolating the problem, you are going to categorize the problem into these parts. That is either what? The hardware problem or hardware related problem or software related problem. So at that phase also, you are required to do verification, or you try, if the system is not, to say it's not booting, you can try booting from the safe mode in order to rule out the software issues, because mostly if you're booting from the safe mode, you're going to rule out so many things on the software issues. So safe mode, if you don't know how to boot your system from safe mode, while starting up the system, it usually run into some BIOS check, that is basic input and output check, which usually run to check the what, the peripheral devices attached to your computer and other component of the computers that are basically for basic input and output are updated and are up and running. They don't have any fault issue regarding that. So I think if anyone can't hear me at this point in time, it means it is a network. So that is for the safe mode. That is what we are saying. If that system could not be able to boot after the BIOS, then it means you are going to restart. If you restart the system, that is, you are going to restart the system either by what, had booting the system. That is, you long press the power button and then to press the power button to what, to start up the system, or you what, hold control alt and delete. This will force the system to restart on the BIOS. So on restarting the system, you can be able to press your F8 continuously. Press F8. It will bring an option to select from what, boot from, say, from safe mode. So this will allow the system or the operating system to bypass many of these software related issues on your system. The third step you can follow in troubleshooting approach is you use what we call checkout obvious. So at this checkout, you are going to ensure all cables are surely connected to the PC if and only if the problem you isolated is for the hardware, right? You make sure that the cables are connected. If maybe probably the monitor is not uh, giving you the visual inspiration, you can be able to check the VGA. Is it truly connected to the VGA? The VGA cable, is it truly connected to the VGA port? So is if the power, if it is not powering, is the source providing light? Is the power pack light on? Is the power pack fan fanning up or what? So these are some of the measures you need to look at these course. Check the obvious. That is, you check what are those basic steps you need to check before you escalate the issue. So, and if it is a software related, just make sure, is this software up to date? And if it is up to date, is it pirated software? Is it licensed software? Is it free trial software or whatsoever? So all these things you need to put them into consideration. Then the next one is you're going to we are going to look at the research the problem. That is, you're going to what? Search this very problem to see if it's beyond your power. That is, after you have checked the obvious and it's beyond your power and you cannot be able to dictate that you cannot be able to provide solution to that very particular problem. So in doing this, you are expected, if you're a startup engineer, you are expected to have what we call a register or a troubleshooting or a maintenance journal. This maintenance journals is where you are going to be registering all kinds of issues related to problem, whether you search them or whether you experience them on the field. So you can be able to track record of all the issues regarding these particular uh, troubleshooting issues. Whatever problem you encountered, you registered it on the journal. So on reaching this step, that is, it the checkup obvious beyond your power, you try to go to your maintenance journals in order to search whether you have encountered this particular problem, if there is any related problem for you to give it a trial. So the next thing you are going to, you move to your other colleagues if they are available. If they are not, then you elect for other resources online, forums, and just look for any other basis knowledge to find or to provide solutions to these similar cases. That is for this step. The next step is the implementing what? Implementing the solution. That means at this phase or at this phase, you're going to what? Troubleshoot the system after you have identified, check up the obvious, research the problem. So you are going to implement just like your software development life cycle. After every requirement whatsoever, so you must implement. So at this place, you are going to implement the solution you have gotten. That is, you apply the most likely fixed based solution to your research. Then you test in order to confirm whether the solution uh, is adequate and the system is or not. If and only if the system is up and running, to do is the document the process. That is where the what? This very particular issue we discuss about tenant journals come in. That is the look on earlier. so will come in. In documenting the date, it depends on one need, the issue, the solution, and this issue, the method, and the solution related to this very particular problem you have encountered. So, and with this, you've been able to tackle the issues of this uh, basic troubleshooting approach on your PC. And I believe this gives an insight of the approach you can take once you had or you experience any faulty issue on your personal computer. So the next thing is that what are those commonly found or experienced problem on our hardware components? So we know already our hardware components, we can identify them. So what are those common hardware problems that we experience in our day-to-day operation with these computer system? Let's look at them. In number one, we have a lack of powering, that is whether the system cannot be able to power or not. So looking at each, we can be able to profile solution to each of these common hardware problem that we are discussing now. Number one, we said no power supply. If there is no power supply on your system, it means you should either go back and check the power supply from the source to the cable and to the power plug, to the power pack if you're using desktop. So, and then you check the connection very well. Is it properly connected from the source again to the port? And the power button also, you need to see whether it's responding to your what, to your action or not. So that is the solution to no power supply. We have also overheating. If we are talking about overheating, we almost in every day-to-day activities with our personal system or with our handset, we usually experience this. And these are problem related to the following solutions. One, if your PC is overheating, you need to check up the processor fan, whether the fan is really fanning the CPU or not. You either look at the ventilation around the system. Is there any adequate ventilation that crossing your system? Most especially, this has to do with a laptop computer. So is there any adequate cross ventilation that support the processor fan? And then you ensure that there is this proper airflow, and then you reapply thermal paste if and only if this overheating continues and you believe that your processor fan is up and doing, your ventilation is adequate to the PC. And this thermal paste, we said you apply it to the CPU. And this thermal paste are nothing that is one solid powder that you can be able to apply on top of your CPU. Once you apply it, it's been able to resist from that heat. It absorbs the heat while receiving the airflow from the processor fan to the CPU. So that is the function of this thermal paste. So the next we have is the boot failure. Most of our system during booting, they usually develop problem. So what are the necessary issues related to that? What solution can we be able to provide to this? Number one, we check on the BIOS settings. We check on the BIOS setting whether there is no issue on the settings. You look at the boot order. Probably your booting order is booting directly to the CD-ROM and you are having a bootable CD plate inside the system, or the system is booting from the network and you are connected in such a way that there are other things that your system want to attend to. So it will now hinder your system from booting. It will result to boot failure. So you need at this point in time on the boot failure to make sure that your PC is booting right from the hard disk or SSD provided with the operating system. And to do that, you only need to go to the BIOS settings by probably pressing F1, F2 to some system. F2 plays to on some system. On some PCs are F10. It depends on the peculiarity of the model of the system you are using. So you do that, you can go to the settings, configuration, you look at the booting or booting, then you look at the boot order, and then you set your boot order to what boot from the hard disk provided with the operating system. And we also have this BSOD, that is BSOD, and this BSOD is called blue screen update. You can see while we are working with our PC, sometimes it's usually just runs into what blue screen. It's annoying, actually, it's annoying because I have experienced that. I have one of my system that usually do that whenever I try to connect. It's very sensitive to external devices. Whenever my external devices try to check up, like shaking like this, so it will just move to blue screen. So what are the necessary solution to this? Number one, you need to analyze the code, that is the code you're plugging into the system, the external code. Sorry, the codes here, the flying code that is displaying, probably the 0x00016, 0x0024, and we have just a lot of them, as I said in the interim of this class. You need to update your driver. You need to check for faulty hardware system. So if these things exist, definitely they are going to be providing or be issuing these issues like this. So the next one, we have slow in performance. We have systems that are very slow in execution. So in this very phase, to deal with this, you need to check up your monitor. You need to monitor your CPU processes. You need to monitor your RAM to see whether that RAM is adequate to provide you with the speed you are expecting or not. You need to look for a hardware drive usage and see, is the usage, the capacity you're using on the hardware drive, is it exhausted or not? If it's a kind of exhausted, then you need to decompose this or to reduce some files. And also the device functionality. These devices, the hardware devices connected to this PC, are they functioning very well or they are not? So these are the things you need to consider at these performance phases. Also, you can run some certain maintenance tools right from inside of your system tools. Something like disk defragmenter, which is the famous. You can be able to use that to check whether you have a defragmented file or not. If you have, then you can be able to defragment. So again, you can be able to reduce some temporary files. You can do that by just typing in from your start menu or from your search bar on the start menu, typing in percentage temp, T-E-M-P, another percentage, you hit enter. This will explore a folder called temp. Double click on it to open, highlight all the files that are there, press your delete. It will ask you a command, yes or not. You just give an issue of yes, then it will process, and then it will be able to delete. At some point it cannot be able to delete some files because those files are claimed that are unused. So we also have issue of peripheral devices that are not working. So if any of your peripheral devices are not working, and I believe we know the meaning of these peripheral devices, we can be able to identify them, such as and we've been able to provide solution to these very common hardware problems. We have next, we are going to look at the diagnosis tools and the techniques. What are the tools do we need to use in diagnosing our PC? What are these tools? Now, number one, we have what we call visual inspection. And in visual inspection, you are going to examine the component for physical damage, loose connections, or signs of a wear. Here, what we are saying in essence, you have experienced a problem. So you are going to use a tool called visual inspection. You are going to observe these components or any identified component. You are going to observe, is there any physical damage on this very system, on this very particular component or not? Or there is any leakages or a sign or a loss of connection, that very component is not really connecting to its proper connection. For instance, we know our RAM are usually connected to the PCI buses, right? So if your RAM is not adequately or is not properly slotted or inserted into its slot, it's not really inserted into its slot, so it means you are going to be experiencing a beep, whether during startup or something. So at this point in time, you need to go back and properly insert those particular uh, components into their very various slots properly. That is the visual inspection. The next one is BIOS, or we call them UEFI. So in the BIOS, we know in the BIOS and the UEFI, the BIOS stand for, it's a network stuff I'm trying to. So the BIOS stand for basic input output system, while the UEFI stand for Unified Extensible Firmware Interface. So what we are saying here, you are going to access here on these techniques. You are going to access system information. You run some configuration of and configure some hardware. I said you can run into the BIOS, and change some boot order, right? Great. So by just pressing F2 or F10, depends on the peculiarity of the system you're using. While you are there, we call them BIOS if you're using olden PCs, because you cannot be able to use your mouse on this very particular BIOS. But if we are talking about the UEFI, that is Unified Extensible Firmware Interface, you can be able to use your mouse. So you can go there and run some diagnosis, right? You can run memory diagnosis, you can run hard disk diagnosis, you can run just many diagnosis stuff on this very particular uh, tool. So on running it, you can be able to also identify the issue regarding this particular problem. The next techniques that we are having on these diagnosis tools and techniques is device manager. You need to go and view, you need to go to view, and then you manage your hardware devices, drivers, and their status. To do that, you can just go to your this PC or my computer. It depends on how you identify it. If you're using olden PCs, we have we have if you're using olden PCs, we have what we call my computer. If you're using latest, we have this PC. All you need to do, right click on it. After you right click, look at the manage. You go to manage, then you see how you can be able to manage your devices from there. All the components connected to your PC are located on your devices. You can be able to upgrade drivers. You can be able to do just a lot of things there. Then we have event view. We have what we call event viewer. In the event viewer here, you are expected to analyze the system logs for errors, for error messages, and then to warnings. Once you go to the event viewer, you can be able to see many uh, hardware faults, any just like a journals related to your system issue. If there is any issue, you can be able to locate them on the event viewer. We also have task manager. On the task manager, you can be able to monitor system performance, resource usage for each particular software of yours, and then you identify process approach on these very tools. We have another techniques or a tools for diagnosis system. We call them SFC, which is System File Checker. On the System File Checker, you can be able to scan and repair a corruptible system file. If you are talking about the system file, we are talking about system 32 on inside your operating system or a program located on your local disk C or local drive C. You can locate there. You can see system 32. All files, libraries related to your operating system are located in that very particular folder called system 32. So any corrupted files, you can be able to use your system file checker to check on them, and then you can be able to fix. Then we have third-party diagnostic tools. Though these third-party diagnostic tools, sometimes they are expensive, and they are just expensive. That is their one mega challenge, and they will keep on disturbing you if you're on a trial version that these issues exist, that issue exists, because they are trying to make their market relevant. So that is the diagnosis tools and techniques we are you can be able to utilize in identifying these problems or solutions. We have preventive measures. we have preventive methods. What are these preventive maintenance measures that you can be able to take charge of so that you prevent your system from developing a problem? Number one, we need to keep our system clean. So you should not allow your system to be in a dusty. Someone was asking, I was a little bit glance at the chat. Someone was asking that I go come back and talk on the BIOS again. So this BIOS, my brother, with a basic input output. Everything related to iOS, that is input output devices, are located on this BIOS. Your settings, everything on the system, boot order, CMOS setting, everything is on the BIOS. And for you to access your BIOS, we say while on boot, you continue to press F2 or F10. Depends on the peculiarity of your system you use. Are we together? So on reaching the BIOS, you can see mostly if it's a BIOS, you can see a blue screen. So you can be able to do many things there from your boot order, diagnosing the system component like the RAM, the hard disk, everything there. You can be able to diagnose your component on that very particular BIOS. And another name for BIOS, that is BIOS is for the olden system. If you're using modern system of these days, they are using UEFI. That is what we call a Unified Extensible Firmware Interface. They are also a BIOS, but they allow the use of your mouse. While in the actual BIOS, you cannot be able to use your a mouse. You can only be use your arrow keys and what have you. But in the UEFI, you can be able to use your mouse, point and click. That is for the BIOS. Thank you. I will give room for question and answers. So let's look at the preventive measures. We said you should allow your system to be in a clean mode. So regular clean and then dusting from the internal components using what we call a blower or a compressed air. So you need to constantly blowing this up, this system in order to free the system from dust. Then the second one is regular update. Ensure drivers are up to date for optimal performance and the compatibility. Uh, Next is the monitor the temperature of your system. Make sure that it's not getting overheated, and you can use softwares in order to track these components and prevent overheating. So you run regular backup. So in case if you run to any issues, you can be able to recover those files or those important data you lost. So also you perform regular hard drive defragmentation. So this will allow you to optimize your hard drive performance by defragmenting the system regularly. You also use need to protect against malware systems. So you installed or you're advised to install antivirus in order to prevent worms and these malware softwares from attacking your system. So these are the necessary preventive maintenance you can be able to take in order to prevent your system from getting issues. We also have hardware upgrade. So how can we, what is this hardware upgrade in the first place? Our hardware upgrade, our hardware upgrade allows us to improve the what? The hardware component that we are having on the system. Assuming we are having a RAM of a 1 gig and we feel that it is not performing adequately, So we need to improve from that 1 gig probably to 2 gig, 3 gig, and what have you. So on this, you are required to do hardware upgrade by obtaining another RAM. Then you have an expanded buses there. You can be able to slot it in order to mount on top of that earlier 1 gig to sum it to 2 gig RAM. So with this, you can enhance the performance of your system. Also, we have a hard drive. So if you're using a HDD, that is hard disk drive, so and you found out that you need to upgrade from HDD to SSD, that is solid state drive. So you can also upgrade, or you are using SSD and you find out that yet the system is giving you a low performance. So you can be able to get another extra hard disk, either hard disk or SSD, because most of this SSD system they usually come they usually come with expanded slot of HDD. So in that case, if they usually come with this and you need to expand it, so you can get HDD to fix in there to mount with your SSD, or you get another SSD to mount on top of your SSD to make one uh, your operating system hard disk and the other one your data hard disk, that whatever you're going to store on the system will reside on the other hard disk or SSD, and your operating system and all other application softwares that you are installing on the PC will be on another hard disk. That is for the hard disk hardware upgrade. We also have graphics cards. You can be able to enhance the gaming and multimedia experience with a dedicated graphic card. We know most of these people that are running studios are having challenges regarding these graphic cards. Some of the PCs we are using doesn't have adequate graphic cards, or the graphic cards cannot be able to content or be compatible with the software that they are trying to install at the point in time. So this will give you a room to upgrade your graphic cards to any latest graphic card that will be compatible with the other operating system you're using, as well as we have a sound card. So if you have any issue related with sound, you can be able to have a sound card so that you can be able to listen and then also communicate through these sound cards. We have CPU upgrade, and upgrading the processor for increased processing power and overall system is very, very important. If you're using a kind of maybe 2 point something gigahertz, you can try to see how you upgrade your CPU to maybe something better. So these are the hardware upgrades you can be able to perform at a point in time in order to enhance the performance of your system. Then, what are the safety precautions that we need to take charge of for us to have a smooth running and troubleshooting free of a system? We have number one, you need to proper power off and unplug your system. That is one. If you want to go off your system, you first of all need to shut down that very particular system. You shouldn't just leave it like that. Number two, you need to remove the source, the socket or the cable from the source, so that there won't be a partial contact. So if you can do this, at least you have a 10% uh, troubleshooting risk or maintenance risks on your system. We also have ground yourself. Grounding yourself while um, carrying out maintenance on these particular systems are very, very essential. That means you're going to that those equipment you're going to pick up during uh, troubleshooting, they should be able to be closer to the ground in such a way that if they if they got fallen from your hand, at least they will not get damaged because they are closer. The gravity, the acceleration due to gravity will be what will be less. So you're reducing the risk of damaging that very particular system. So you handle the system also, you handle the component with care, and also you can do that by avoiding a direct touch to the sensitive places. Like you have a RAM and you're touching directly, your hand is touching the chips directly with your bare hand like this, without a glove, without anything. Or the CPU, you're turning the chip upside down and be what rubbing the chips on the CPU, which eventually, if one got bent, then your system will not function well again. The next one is you work in a very well light area. So adequate lighting is always important, so that if you have any missing equipment, you can be able to trace it very quickly and easily. So you also need to consult manuals and then documentation that those maintenance journals of yours. So you should be able to consult those manual. These are the safety precautions that if you looked at them into your lab, in your hardware lab, you can excel. So now, what are the best practices for hardware maintenance? To maintain optimal performance, we need to follow these uh, the following best practices we have here. Number one, you establish a regular scheduler. That is, you are going to fix yourself either weekly, monthly, quarterly, in order to check up your components. How many of you does that? I believe none. So regarding this, you can be able to perform the air compressor or blowing the system, that is cleaning the system weekly. Regarding this defragmental, you can do that weekly, quarterly. Regarding this thing again, the system file that are usually thrown into temp, you can also do that weekly and then quarterly and what have you. This will keep your system in good shape. Number two, you need to back up your data regularly. So backing up this data prevents your data from loss. So in case if the and only if your hardware got issue. So you also need to document these maintenance activities. These are something that we have been talking to on, and um you practice So I'm so sorry, I've attended to something. So when we talk about the best, you need to practice ESD, that is electrostatic discharge precautions. So you always need to ground yourself when handling this component in order to avoid damaging them from the static electricity. So cleaning computer hardware. While cleaning computer hardware, what are the measures do you need to take charge of? Number one, you need to turn off and unplug the computer. This will ensure that uh, it is disconnected from the power and there is no any microfiber cloth within that, and there won't be a partial contact. So you use a compressor or air blower in order to blow out the dust from fans, heat and sink, and as well as the ports. You clean the exterior. You wipe down the key, the keyboard, the monitor, and the case with a microfiber. So you also look around the internal component in order to make sure you've cleaned them very well, and also allowed you should avoid liquid cleaners. That is, unless using specialized electronic cleaners, you should not be using water in cleaning anything. You can employ the use of a spirit and what have you. So this, in summary, or this is what we have, and I believe is quite adequate. Let me go to my chat. If you have any issue, we can be able to at least address them and see what we can be able to achieve at the end of these sessions of questions and answering. So just a moment, I'm trying to get into my back into my channel so that I can be able to read out comments. So if you have any question, please, you can drop them now. I cannot go back to first the first comment as far to say, but you can start dropping them. So we said we can ask. Someone was asking a definition of troubleshooting. We said this is the process of identifying and fixing a problem for a particular hardware component. So if you have any particular component, you can follow up the steps we have outlined outlined during procedure of troubleshooting methodology, and then see how you can be able to fix them. That's the definition of troubleshooting. So again, let me still go. You can drop your questions, please. What's the first best practice of a hardware maintenance? The first best practice of the hardware maintenance is to prevent your system from developing problem, and you can do that by make sure you conduct a regular backup, regular maintenance in type of regular update of the system softwares, and the regular upgrade of the computer component. So by doing that, you can prevent your system from developing problem. So I hope this is also answered. Uh, when I'm trying to turn on my stream, it's showing so. Uh, so someone said I talked more about peripheral devices. Can you talk about peripheral devices? Yes. These peripheral devices are the component that's attached to your computer system. is not actually this computer itself, but those peripherals attached to them, like the mouse, the keyboard, the printers. All these are is all these components. We see this will take us to say we have a computer and we have a computer system. Computer is this electronics device that can allows you to impute, process, and then get feedback information from it, right? So if we talk about the computer system, these are complete computer that have a full input, output, processing, and what have you. All the component that surrounds the computers is what makes the computer system to be a fully a computer system. So we said those components that surrounds the computer. So they are the computer, they are the peripheral devices. Thank you for this question. Someone said that I should explain UEFI. So first of all, UEFI stand for Unified Extensible Firmware Interface. Is another upgrade of a BIOS. So if you're using any latest Windows these days, you can be able to, if you navigate to the BIOS, it's the same process. You can go to the BIOS,